Most HCM platforms out there have really been focused on the office setting, and the remote work was always kind of a maybe, or it was a nuance. But now technology has to say, okay, how do we bring people together? And you've seen that in some of the successes of some of these internet companies that have come up that are more cultural-based organizations. So future of work is how do you make sure you can support your entire global workforce regardless. In addition to that, hiring practices have changed as well. You're no longer focusing on just your talent that's in your postal code. You're looking at talent that's the best talent around the world. So you're taking from the thousands to the billions in your overall talent pool, and now saying, look, I can leverage technology to hire someone anywhere, anywhere, at any time through this technology. And so now they're going, okay, how do I manage that?
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Small Talk Window podcast, where we have 10-ish minutes to dispense with the small talk as quickly as possible and settle into a meaningful conversation related to the world of work. So for this episode, just like the environment, social justice and other assorted concerns near and dear to people's hearts from a global perspective, global human capital management is quote unquote glocal. It's a term you might have heard. You must think globally, but act locally. And this is where the word glocal comes from, of course. Joining me for this episode is Rick Hammell. Rick is founder and CEO of the just launched Helios, or just about to be launched Helios, I should say, and co-founder and chairman of the board at the well-known employer of record, Atlas. Rick and I are going to discuss why acting glocally just might be the number one thing global employers can do to protect and optimize a global employee experience, Welcome, Rick.
Thank you, Brent, for having me. I'm super excited to be here to talk about this subject.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I think this is really going to be very interesting. Maybe you could tell us just a little bit about Helios and sort of your, in 30 seconds or less, tell us your life story, if you will.
Sure. So I'll quickly say that my background was actually leading HR services and operations for a government contractor, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, leading a global operations in Saudi Arabia, Singapore, and Japan. And so I even started my last company based on that overall experience. I wanted to figure out a way to simplify global expansion. So fast forwarding through the employer of record, which I was super excited and very successful at Atlas, I felt like there was still a need that was needed in the overall global journey. Clients may come in with contractors and they use an employer of record. They may have already establishment in certain countries, but customers want to have one pane of glass to manage their global teams. And that's what we're focused here at Helios is giving them the technology to simplify global expansion, onboard employees, and pay employees in one pane of glass.
That's interesting. And before we get into sort of the glocal concept and employee experience, you talk about the global journey. I like that term. Anything more to say there? I mean, I'd love to hear just your thoughts. What is a global journey for a company?
So depending on where the client is in their overall journey, they may start with contractors. They're dipping their toe in that particular market. They don't know if they're really going to expand. They're testing the market. And so they may start with contractors. They may use an employer of record. And there are other organizations who are well established. They've already set up entities in those particular countries, and they're just expanding out their overall employee base. Regardless of where they are in that journey, Helios is very much focused on supporting them. So they have entities, they don't have entities. They have contractors, they have full-time employees. We want to be able to say, where you're at, you can start with contractors and you can graduate into an employer of record. You can have an employer of record and then graduate into a global payroll solution, or vice versa. But we're here to really support you through that journey and simplify global expansion by really giving you the technology to, one, stay compliant, but two, make sure it's very simplistic. So if you're a CEO who's never done business abroad, you can manage onboarding employees and managing a global team, or you're a sophisticated payroll or HR professional that's been in the game for 20 years, you have a technology that you can trust to manage your overall global operations.
Yeah. And that's important point to make is that path or that journey to becoming global is there are many different paths to it, and it can be complex. And we've all been in those types of roles where there's there are contractors first before W-2. I mean, it's just it's the nature of getting going as a business. Just to kind of get into the topic here, thinking glocally for the protecting the employee experience. Why exactly is glocal, if people can hear I'm spelling it, pronouncing it with a C instead of a B. Why is global thinking most important to protecting and optimizing the employee experience for global organizations? Why?
Hey, it's Bob Pulver, host of You podcast. Human-centric AI, AI-driven transformation, hiring for skills and potential, dynamic workforce ecosystems, responsible innovation. These are some of the themes my expert guests and I chat about, and we certainly geek out on the details. Nothing too technical. I hope you check it out.
I think it's important because there have been studies that shown that U.S. companies who were going business abroad, they were bringing a U.S. culture into those particular countries, and it didn't give the overall experience to the employee that they really wanted. Employees want to feel like they're valued. Employees want to feel like they're heard, and different countries have different culture nuances that really kind of are embedded into the overall experience for that employee. And when they're leveraging a U.S. organization or let's say a European organization going into Asia, there's certain components and complexities that they're used to as an employee that sometimes doesn't come with working with a global organization. And so to make sure that you're really enhancing and investing to that overall experience, and employee experience is important for retention, productivity within an organization, and also making sure that they're supporting you for success in those markets. You have to make sure that they understand that and they're supported from there. One of the studies that I recently read was that employees who work for foreign companies have a higher risk of leaving an organization within less than 2 years because they feel like they are just on their own island. They don't feel like they're supported. They don't feel like they have the right infrastructure. They don't feel like their voices are heard at the table. So thinking about it from a global perspective, be a global. You have your standard organizations. You have the culture that you're looking at developing. That's about 80% of what's going to set you up for success. You're building that globalization part of that is that 20% delta. So you're investing that 20% delta to ensure that the employees feel like they're included. We've heard the term diversity and inclusion. That's part of that, right? It's how do you make sure employees feel like they're part of the conversation, part of the culture, and they're actually having an impact. Everyone wants to have an impact, and that's what globalization does.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because when you say thinking locally, right? You're also thinking globally because we'll use the example that you used, sort of the U.S. based company that's expanding globally and having sort of that inclination or that tendency, I think is the right word, to just kind of assume without even realizing you're assuming that it's going to be the same that you're used to and how work goes where you are. And it's going to be basically the same everywhere else that you go. And so it's focusing on every single.
Hey, we're the payroll baddies, and our mission is to make payroll fun and relatable.
And call out industry when we hear it.
You got to call it out. You got to call it like you see it. But we also got to shine a light on all those unsung payroll heroes out there, making sure we get paid.
Yeah, those are the real payroll baddies out there, and we love sharing their stories and showing them love.
With gold chain and everything, baby.
By the way, SAP is the best payroll out there, and if you don't like it,
get out.
Hey, everybody. Got a quick question for you. Is your job easy, stress-free, and full of rainbows and sunshine every single day? Yeah, I'd say that's a big fat no. Hi, I'm David Noe, host of Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners, and proud to be part of the Work Defined community. Take a step down into my Speakeasy live on LinkedIn and YouTube, where we tackle HR and business challenges through raw, uncut, unfiltered conversations. This is HR like you've never heard it before. Bold, real, and full of practical takeaways. Real guests, bold insights, authentic conversations that drive change. Catch every episode on demand through your favorite podcast platform or all the content at speakeasyhr.com.
Local destination outside of your comfort zone. So that's the local part, but you actually are thinking globally when you're thinking locally. I guess that's why the word is glocal.
Well, also, when you're thinking about the complexity, let's use something very simple like vacation time. So, typically you see 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more in the U.S. Now there's a term with unlimited PTO. there are countries that have actual rules and regulations regarding vacation time that are above and beyond the US, for example. Using Spain, typically it's 21 to 22 days. It could be a little bit more than that, but typically that's what you see on average. With that, most employees take time off around the August timeframe in Spain. Where US companies were like, wait, why are you taking so much time off, or why are you leveraging? Most average outside the US, people take typically 2 weeks off at a time, maybe a little bit more. Well, that's typically the entire bank of vacation time in the US, and you typically see it sporadically taken at that point. So understanding cultural nuances, like how do you make sure that you're building business processes and procedures, forecasting, management, to ensure that you understand that, hey, this part of our organization may be off, or a big portion of our big part of our organization, but that's a cultural nuance that we want to make sure we're respecting, really actually helps with managing your business as a whole. So that localization, understanding, hey, this is a cultural nuance, and building your process and procedures behind that really actually sets you up for success and still gives that employee experience that you're looking for. As an example, there's quite a few of those that I can actually give.
Oh yeah. Oh, I recall it was about at least 15 years ago, maybe more, when I first encountered this. I was interacting with some folks over in Europe, related to work, and August rolled around and everybody was basically went dark for a month, and I couldn't believe it. I said, really? Okay, well, and I thought, gosh, I'm going to move to Europe. But anyway, um, we're doing well here. We might go a little bit more than 10 minutes, but that's okay. We say 10-ish minutes. And there's one thing that I want to get to here with you, Rick, which is really fascinating to me. We touched on the DE and I, and I'd like to get to the AI as well. But one thing I'd like to get to first really quickly here is, you've said the employee experience is tied to the future of work. We talked about that in one of our conversations recently. What do you mean by this?
I hate bringing it up, but I always will bring it up. Post-COVID, the world has changed. And I remember the days I remember that March of 2020, and you're telling employees that they have to work from home, and everyone's fighting tooth and nail. I don't want to work from home. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the time. And now you look at today in 2024, everyone's like, what do you mean I can't work from home? I need to work from home. So there's a contradiction that's happened over the last year. But what's because is employees have realized, one, they can be successful working from home. Remote work actually works. There's a lot of studies that show that. Two, there's a work-life balance. Employees are actually beginning to spend time with their families, which post-COVID studies have shown that family involvement, family time is more important than even compensation at this point. They're also seeing that they are actually more productive. That hour that they're spending to get to work and that hour they're spending to get home, they're actually able to get more work done at that point. So employees are actually working more, they're getting things done, they're being more productive. And then in some cases, they're able to leverage getting time spent with their families, spending time with their spouses, and they're saving money in doing that. So their income brackets have actually technically gone up because they're not spending money on gas, they're not spending money on commutes. And so employees have said, look, I want to work from home. I want this experience. Technology has to have evolved to support that. Most HCM platforms out there have really been focused on the office setting, and the remote work was always kind of a maybe, or it was a nuance. But now technology has to say, okay, how do we bring people together? And you've seen that in some of the successes of some of these internet companies that have come up that are more cultural-based organizations. So future work is, how do you make sure you can support your entire global workforce regardless? In addition to that, hiring practices have changed as well. You're no longer focusing on just your talent that's in your postal code. You're looking at talent that's the best talent around the world. So you're taking from the thousands to the billions in your overall talent pool, and now saying, look, I can leverage technology to hire someone anywhere at any time through this technology. And so now they're going, okay, how do I manage that? Yeah. Then you're also looking at the nuances of how to make sure that you're holding them accountable. So how do you make sure you're communicating? You saw the boom with Zoom. You saw the boom with Teams post-COVID, how organizations are communicating with their organizations. So the future of work is, how do we make sure we understand where work is going, and how do we build technology to support that to make it more simplistic?
Oh, absolutely. So well put. So well put. And why don't we put a pin in the artificial intelligence piece of this whole puzzle, because I think that might actually be our next episode, Rick. I'd love to maybe, let's talk about that because we are coming up on actually 13 minutes, which is fine. we say 10-ish minutes, and we've covered a lot of ground, and this has just been absolutely fascinating. I love what you have to say about technology sort of facilitating things, and it's sort of it's a dance and all of this, and you're absolutely right. And this is where the world of work is going, in more global, diversified, highly diversified teams. Excuse me, physically diversified. Oh, you know what I mean. Anyway, in any event, teams that are across different time zones and all this kind of stuff, and trying to make it all work. And it's absolutely fascinating, and it's something that absolutely deserves a lot of attention. So kudos to you and Helios for giving it the attention it needs. Thank you, Rick, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.